In episode 5, you get a look at what happened to the employees of UBA during the pandemic, because this starts out in March 2020. They all had to adapt to a completely new way of life, whether it be standing 6 feet from each other, whether it be doing their own hair and makeup. It was an adjustment period for all of them. Laura was doing the morning show with Bradley, but Laura was out in Montana, and she really wanted Bradley to come along. After a little bit of pushing, Bradley decided, you know what, yeah, it's time to move out of the hotel, and she's going to fly out to Montana, and it's going to be easier for UBA because they're both going to be in the same location. They're going to be quarantining alone, but they're also going to be doing the show together, so just one camera. It's a little bit awkward for Corey when he finds out about this because it wasn't that long ago that he told her he loved her. So Bradley feels it necessary to let Corey know, this isn't because of what you said. I'm going out there because it's just what's best. At first, the trip out to Montana is great. But it's not long after she arrives that Bradley's past comes calling. Hal in particular. Because Hal's still stuck in West Virginia, and Hal's also stuck with their mother. He's kind of pressuring Bradley to visit, but she explains to him that it doesn't really make a lot of sense at this moment. Because when she gets there, she'd have to quarantine, and then she'd fly back to Montana and have to quarantine again. She promises Hal that she will visit once the restrictions are lifted, but at the moment, she's not coming to West Virginia. All in all, though, Hal is doing much better than the last time we saw him, when he was in a hospital bed after getting mugged. But Hal is still being judged, mainly by Laura. Laura makes a joke about Hal and how he didn't learn about science, clearly, because he's wanting Bradley to fly to West Virginia, and she doesn't take too kindly to it, because it is her family after all. They get over the comment, though, fairly quickly, and spring then turns to summer. Things are going so well that they kind of decide to go public with their relationship. It's not an outright, hey, we're dating, but the comments that they make on the morning show make it very clear to the audience that they're not sleeping in separate beds. But as the months are going on, Bradley's getting more and more impatient. She's getting stir crazy. She kind of wants to leave, just get out of the house. Laura, on the other hand, is way more cautious with it. She's content with friends coming over, and there's plans on some of her friends coming over the next day. After Laura tells Bradley about this and leaves the room, Bradley gets a phone call from Hal telling Bradley that their mother has COVID. This is a huge deal because it's still at a time with no vaccine, and the death toll for COVID is rising. Also, their mother is elderly. So you can imagine Bradley's concern when she gets this phone call from Hal. But Hal tries to put her mind at ease and say, Bradley, there's nothing you can do. I'll keep you updated. I just wanted to let you know. Bradley does feel like she should fly to West Virginia, see their mom, make sure she's okay, but Hal talks her out of it, saying, what's the point of that? So you could possibly risk getting COVID too? So for the time being, Bradley's going to stay put in Montana. The following day, though, Bradley gets a phone call that will change her life forever. As Laura and Bradley are entertaining some of Laura's friends, Hal rings her up and informs her that their mother has passed away, and Bradley is absolutely devastated. Yeah, she didn't have a good relationship with her mother, but it's still her mother. She feels a sense of guilt because her brother tried to convince her to come out to West Virginia to see them, and she just kept turning down the invitation. The fact she never got to say goodbye to her mom is eating at her. As summer turns to fall, the relationship between Bradley and Laura starts to deteriorate. The honeymoon period is completely over. It seems like every talking point starts a fight. Laura thinks that Bradley needs to talk to a therapist, but Bradley has absolutely no interest in talking to a therapist. She's just bottling up her emotions at the moment. Eventually, all that bottled up emotion boils over into the biggest fight that Bradley and Laura have ever had. It's centered around Bradley's mom dying and how Laura is happy when people like her die. And Laura gets tired of taking it and says, you know what, Bradley? I think there's a little piece of you that's happy that she died. There's no coming back from this type of fight. Bradley starts looking for an exit strategy to get out of Montana. She doesn't care what she's doing, what she's covering. She just wants out. She gets her opportunity with the January 6th insurrection. Bradley gets the okay from UBA brass to go to Washington, D.C., but it turns into something completely different. She heads into the Capitol. She starts filming everything she sees, but then she sees something that she doesn't want to. As she's filming one of the insurrectionists fighting with a Capitol police officer, the man looks up and Bradley sees that the man is Hal. She shuts the camera off, she grabs Hal, and they get the hell out of there. When they get back to Bradley's hotel, Hal is trying to explain why he was there, but there's no explanation for being in the Capitol if you're not a politician. Bradley's not quite sure what to do. She doesn't want to turn her brother in. With Bradley having just lost her mom, she can't imagine sending her brother to jail. So she gives him money for a bus ticket and says, "You were never here." Bradley gets back to the UBA offices a short time later. She starts editing the footage, and she decides to bury the video of Hal. This type of coverage will eventually earn her a Peabody Award. The thing is, the FBI, they don't forget. They start looking for information because they want all of these guys rounded up. So they're going to go to UBA because Bradley clearly had footage and they want to identify everybody. When the FBI starts asking, that's tough. I mean, what is Bradley to do? She has nowhere to turn, so she goes to Corey. Corey figures that it's just as simple as handing over the footage. I mean, what does Bradley have to hide? And that's when Bradley reveals what happened at the Capitol with Hal. Corey's entire mood changes. He's livid. He's so mad at Bradley for putting him in this position. But at the end of it, he's going to help Bradley out. He's going to give the FBI nothing. He's going to try to protect journalistic integrity, and he's going to basically say what we aired is what you get. But he never wants to speak of it again. When it rolls into the new year, the morning show is broken up, and Bradley is now doing evening news. Bradley and Laura are not the only relationship to be going strong during the pandemic, but towards the end of it fail. Mia is actually in a relationship with Andre Ford, the independent journalist. In March, it is thriving, but things take a turn when he heads out to a bar in the middle of a pandemic and risks bringing COVID back to her. Ultimately, he takes a job overseas and the relationship kind of goes their separate ways. So when it seemed like these two had a past earlier, it's because they do. Stella doesn't get in a relationship, but she does have an old friend stop by. It's her best friend from college named Kate. But not only were these two best friends in college, they also worked together at Hyperion. Kate seems absolutely miserable at Hyperion, and Stella understands why. She used to work there. But unfortunately, Stella informs her there's nothing at UBA that she's really qualified for. In many ways, Kate seems jealous over Stella's decision to leave Hyperion behind. But it seems like Stella was the only one not to get in a relationship because even Corey found himself in a little bit of a fling. He also decided that he couldn't stay in the hotel forever. He wanted to buy a house. He bought a beautiful, palatial place in the Hamptons, and he ended up hooking up with his realtor. And I don't blame him, because she was attractive. But with a huge place in the Hamptons, you're going to have some famous celebrity neighbors, and one of those neighbors ends up being Paul Marks. So that's how the two were first introduced. They live right down the beach from each other. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.